I've been drawing for a while now, but for some reason I always felt like there was something missing between the art that I made compared to the art of actual professionals. This all changed 1 month ago when I was reached out by Coloso to review one of their courses. Coloso is a global online learning platform offering in-depth classes in creative fields like illustration, motion design, 3D modeling, and more. They work with top-tier professionals to help aspiring creators develop their skills. This is Timbougami, a freelance illustrator who has worked on many works such as Arknights, Azure Lane, and many more. The thing that drew me into his art is his use of backgrounds. Every one of his illustrations includes a fully rendered background that is used to blend his characters into the environment. The course that I picked to review for this video was the one by Timbougami, creating characters and backgrounds that pull you into another world. The course is designed for beginners and intermediate artists that want to get better at drawing characters and backgrounds in an anime style. The course covers a lot of fundamentals of art such as composition, perspective, lighting, coloring, rendering, and more. But in this video, I want to focus on the topic that I think helped me the most in improving my art: composition. Composition is the arrangement of objects placed within a scene. The purpose of composition is to arrange objects in a scene to make them look pleasing to the eyes. To begin with, let's start off with something simple: the rule of thirds. The rule of thirds is a guideline that is used to show areas in a composition that our eyes will be naturally drawn towards. It is created by dividing the length and width of a frame into 3 equal sections and creating 4 intersections. When using the rule of thirds, we want to align our points of interest along the lines and, most importantly, along the intersections of these lines. The point of interest can be anything that we want to show to our audience. For character illustrations such as these, we obviously want our character to be the main point of interest. Something important to note is that we do not need to perfectly align our point of interest on these intersections. As long as they are close enough to the intersections, they will look pleasing to our eyes. Let's look at some more examples of Timbougami's art. In his art, we can see that he follows the rule of thirds in many of his illustrations. The characters and objects in the scene are placed in a way that follow the rule of thirds, and overall, it ends up creating a composition that looks balanced and pleasing to our eyes. Of course, the rule of thirds is not the only compositional guideline that you can use to make your compositions look interesting. Here is an image of some of the most common ones that you can use to reference for later. If you are just starting out with learning composition, I would recommend for you to try finding these compositions in your daily life. You can see many of these compositions in films, shows, or even YouTube videos. I promise you that as soon as you start noticing these guidelines, you'll start seeing them everywhere. Composition is something that applies to every art form, and the theory between all of these art forms are interchangeable. Here, we can see how Monet uses these principles to portray his points of interest in his paintings. If you want to get better at compositions, I would recommend for you to study from art or illustrations that you like and try to break down its composition into different pieces. Take an image or illustration and try to break down the ways that they use to create their composition. This will train your eyes to look out for aspects of an illustration that will make them more interesting to view. This isn't the only thing that is used when we talk about composition though. There are other things such as shapes, sizes, and patterns that we have to pay attention to when we want to create an interesting looking composition. For an illustration such as this, shapes are used to break up the foreground, midground, and background of the scene. When we block out these elements into different shapes, we can see how the different parts of a scene are created for the viewer to look at. The composition is designed in a way to make it so you don't lose interest when looking at the piece. We can see how objects are placed in a way that guide your eyes to other areas of the piece to keep your attention. These objects don't fight the main point of interest and are instead used to enhance the character and storytelling of the piece. Here, we can see another illustration by Timbougami. In this illustration, we can see that there is a general shape that is used to guide our eyes between the focal areas of the image. We can see that there is a triangle that frames the 2 characters together. Within the shape, you can see that it can be broken up into 2 subjects. The larger character standing in the frame takes up the most space in the illustration, and therefore is the first thing that we see when we view the illustration. The next thing that we see is the smaller character. As they are smaller in the frame, they have less of a presence in the scene. There is a hierarchy that happens when you view this illustration. First, you see the characters, and then you move on to the curtains, and afterwards, you move on to the repeating patterns of the bricks on the rest of the illustration. When you are drawing and when you are creating a composition for your scene, you have to keep these small things in mind if you want to create a piece that is interesting and eye-catching. Having these aspects allows the viewers to view the piece for longer and appreciate every aspect of the art and composition. One of the exercises that Timbougami recommends is to draw some compositions with simple objects in different camera angles and aspect ratios. The purpose of this study is to train the eye to get better at placing objects in an organized fashion that looks appealing to the viewer. When doing these exercises, try to think hard about what makes things look interesting when they are put together. Differences in size, shape, and form will help you in creating an interesting looking composition. Now that we've studied other artists' compositions, how can we use everything that we've learned for our own art? The method to getting better at compositions is to use thumbnails. Thumbnails are small illustrations that we draw to see how the composition of our image would look. You've probably seen hundreds of thumbnails just by scrolling for videos on YouTube. The point of thumbnailing is to get rough ideas out of the way so that you are able to choose the best ideas out of the bunch before committing to spending hours on an entire piece. After finishing the course, I learned a lot about perspective, composition, and form. Throughout the course, Timbougami went over 1, 2, 3, 4, and even 5-point perspective, as well as explaining how to use the perspective rulers inside of Clip Studio Paint. The course also covered a lot of fundamentals for anime art, such as anatomy, proportion, gestures, and so much more that I can't fit into this one video. The courses on Coloso are pre-recorded, so you can watch any of them at your own pace. There are also extra bonuses that are included in the course. There are brushes that you can use and PSD files of some of the illustrations for you to view for yourself. The biggest downside of the course is that a large portion of the course uses features exclusive to Clip Studio Paint that might not be available in other drawing programs. I would say that for me, the course was too broad and covered a lot of topics that I was already familiar with. I wish it had more lessons specifically on getting better at drawing backgrounds, but I understand the need to cover all of the fundamentals for beginners. I think that if I was a newer artist, this course would have helped me a lot in getting on the right track in my learning. I would say that the course is more recommended for beginners as it covers a lot of the basics that you need to understand if you want to get better at drawing anime art specifically. If the style is not for you, or if you feel as though you are already past the basics, you can always look for other courses on Coloso or for other materials online that can help you throughout your art journey. I know how expensive the courses can be, so before you decide if it's right for you, I would recommend you to check out the previews that Coloso uploads to YouTube. They have multiple channels where they upload portions of their course to view for free. You can watch the previews to see if they are something that you would be interested in. If you are interested in purchasing a course on Coloso, check out the website and discount code in the link below. For my final illustration, I wanted to take everything that I learned throughout the course and make a full character and background illustration. My process for this illustration was very different compared to the illustrations that I made in the past. For this illustration, I started out by thumbnailing in the composition. After deciding on the one that I liked, I blocked in the colors and started lining the art. Usually when I draw, I start from a sketch and go straight to rendering. But for this illustration, I really wanted to have clean lines like how Timbougami draws. When drawing the illustration, I paid a lot of attention to how the composition looked and how the character was posed. To add more details to the illustration, I tried adding as many themed items that I could that complement the story of the character. Overall, I was quite happy with how everything turned out. I still have a lot to learn when it comes to art, but I hope that one day I can catch up to all of the artists that I look up to. As always, thank you for watching, and I hope to see you again in another video.